Hi everybody, it's Ryan Gray with Electric Brewing Supply. Today I'm going to go real quickly over our wireless adapters and setting them up from start to finish and kind of go through the whole process. So you have a couple options on setting these up. With the BCS, it's always kind of a learning curve for people who aren't familiar with networking. But once they're set up, you are good to go and life's pretty smooth. But today I'm going to talk about the wireless routers that I tend to set up the panels with. They are TP-LINK branded travel routers, basically. They're 150 megabit wireless and mini pocket routers, model TL-WR700Ns. These ones literally plug into the wall. There's no power adapter or anything. It's all built into one. It has a little plug on the bottom for the network connection to the BCS. However, they ship as a router, not as an access point, so you actually have to configure them first. So the first step is to actually take the router in your hand and flip it to the plug side of the unit, and you will find the wireless password, wireless SSID, as well as the login administrative password for the web browser login. So in this case, I've already pulled that information, and what I will do now is go ahead and attach my computer to it. So using the wireless tool in Windows here, I'm going to go ahead and talk to the TP-Link, and I'm going to connect to it. Since I've already connected to it once before, it's not going to ask for the password again, but normally it would prompt for the password. We'd go ahead and plug it in. Be sure to note that the password is case sensitive. That means the capital letters need to be capitalized when you enter it. Otherwise, it's going to error out on you. So it's now entered. Now what you'll do is you'll point your web browser to 192.168.0.254. We'll go ahead and refresh it. Now there are two ways that you'd set this up. There's one where it's a standalone wireless router. You just log into it when you want to brew, you call it a day, and then you hop off and you go back to your wireless network for your internet. The other way is to set it up where it talks as a client to your network at home, so that you don't have to change your wireless connection. You just talk straight to it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process of setting up the standalone, and then I will then convert it to a wireless client. That way you kind of get an idea of, you can go both ways. Both of them have to be done, or one or the other has to be done. So what we'll do is once you log in, you go onto the router and you go and change. First things I change are usually the wireless ID. And save that, and the password. But obviously you can leave them as the defaults. There's nothing says that you can't. But we'll go ahead and do that. And then you also want to make sure that this is enabled. The DHCP is the tool that actually issues your IP addresses to all your devices. So that addresses what allows you to browse around. So we have that set. Then we come over here to working mode. By the way, do not use quick setup in this case. We go to working mode and AP, or AP mode, also known as access point mode, which will then turn that network jack on the bottom of the router into just another network connection that will allow the BCS to talk. So we'll go ahead and hit save. It's going to prompt to reboot. So we'll hit OK, and then it's going to begin restarting. This will take a couple seconds, upwards of 10 to 15 seconds. So we'll let that roll. And once it's done flagging there, okay, so now my computer's going to jump back to my home network, which means when it refreshes, it's going to prompt a failure. So that's a good sign. So now we're going to go back down to our wireless tool, and you should see, yep, there it is, Ebrewsupply. So we'll go ahead and connect. Again, we'd enter the password for Ebrewsupply when prompted, and that will come up. At this point, you can plug in the BCS If you had it already plugged in, you need to unpower or disconnect the power and reconnect the power, so that the VCS will then grab a network address. If you don't do that, the VCS won't get a network address, and you will be limited. You won't be able to find it. So always, when the router reboots, you need to be sure that you unplug the VCS and then plug it back in. Don't just flick the switch on the control panel, because what that will do is it'll shut off the router and the VCS. You actually need to unplug just the VCS. At this point, when they boot up simultaneously if you flip the key, and when you do that, it ends up that the VCS doesn't get a network address. So it's kind of a domino effect. You need one to go down before the other one. So now, so now once you've rebooted, the best thing to do would actually be to come down from your working mode screen here. Click on DHCP, click on DHCP client list. You should see two devices on there. Because one will be the BCS and one will be the computer. If you don't see it, don't panic yet. Don't panic, honestly. So you don't see it, but your computer is sitting at 100. There's only two devices attached to this router, so it's going to go onwards to the next IP. So what you would do is then type in the next IP. So in that case, we're going to go 192.168.101. And there it is. So like I said, don't panic if it doesn't show up on the list. The VCS usually will, but doesn't always. So like there you go. It just pinged when I went and pulled the page. So now it's on the list. I've been kind of working with this all day, so it's already seen it a couple times, and that's part of the reason it wasn't coming up initially. But it will come up, or it should come up. But definitely don't panic. It always will go in sequence. So if your computer is sitting at 100, then your VCS will be at 101. If your PC is at 101, the VCS is likely at 100. So there we have the VCS unit. And so now what we can do is we can either use it as a standalone unit, or what we'd like to do is try and configure it for our home network. Now this is where you have to be sure you take advantage of the domino effect, because if you don't, you're going to make your life a lot more complicated. So what we will do now is we can come into the router, and we'll go to setup, and we're going to change it to client. In this case, for the client function, you definitely want to use quick setup, because what it will do is make some changes on the backside that you can't as easily change in the tools. So we'll use the wizard to set it up. It's going to look for our wireless networks, and we have plenty to choose from. So we're going to pick our network, and we'll punch in our password. Let's see here. All right, so we've put in our password, and we'll hit next, and then we'll tell it to go ahead and reboot. Now this is where it gets a little rocky. It can take up to about 3 minutes for the router to finally sync with your network. So just be patient. Like I said, I've been wrestling with this for a bit. And so if it doesn't work the first time, go ahead and reset and try again. If anything, it could be a symbol in your password that could have an effect on it actually logging in. At the moment, we're going to go ahead and just kind of sit back and wait. You can also monitor the BCS unit, or the TP-LINK, sorry. If the blue LED is blinking, just be patient and wait. If it's solid, then you should be in good standing. So now let's make sure our computer is connected to our home network, which it is. And now we have our router back up, which is on. I was going to say that shouldn't be coming up. Okay, so yeah, I was going to say that shouldn't come up, because actually when it comes to my home network, it's not going to come up. But the trick to finding your router is to know what your MAC address is, which is also on the router. And then you go into command prompt. You can do this by hitting start and CMD and command prompt. And then ARP-A will help you locate it. In this case, my router starts with F8 1A. So here is my router. So we can go in and type the IP address, and there is the router. So then from there, all we have to do is we can do one of two things. We can try and guess where the BCS is, or better yet, first, let's unplug the BCS if you've had it plugged in, such as I did. So I'm going to go unplug it here real quick. Give it a moment, and then go ahead and plug it back in. And then the blue LED on the router will blink for a minute on the wireless adapter as the BCS gets its network address. And then we use a tool called BCS Finder, which you can find on Embedded Control Concepts website on the wiki. So you download the BCS System Finder, and what it'll do is it will crawl the network looking for the BCS units. Obviously, you got my own setup there, and then there's the one, just to make sure, there's the one that I was using for the demo here. So when we type in 10.77.1.52, there it is. At this point, there's one step that you very much should do if you want to save yourself a whole lot of headache, and that is to come into communication settings under system settings. Under communication settings, go ahead and change this static IP address to, you can either change it to the one exactly like this one, or I usually prefer, and most network routers will work better with, is to use the 200 series. So you can go 192.168.0.200, or in my case 10.77.1.200, and then you disable the DHCP. The reason you do this is because of, again, the domino effect. When the router and the BCS start up simultaneously, it won't retrieve a network address. If you static it like this, where you plug it in instead of enable or disable it, disable the DHCP, then the network address is preset, and when the router and the BCS start up, the BCS doesn't go looking for a network, it just automatically puts in that address and it's done. And that way, when the wireless is done booting, everything is up and running. But it's very important that you do this, otherwise you will create a lot of headache for yourself. I had many bad brew days because of that. But definitely be sure to set it as a static and save yourself the headache. And then you can move forward with going with your brew process, etc., and programming it, which I've put some videos to get additional videos on how to up on our YouTube channel. So that really kind of concludes it. If you have any questions, you can always email us or email me at sales@ebrewsupply.com. Until the next video, enjoy your brewing. Thanks.